Hi my babies, welcome back to the Lit Stoop. It's your girl, who does this? It's your girl Biblio Blue, and I'm here with another video. Today I'm doing the Booktube Newbie tag. So yeah, I haven't done a tag yet on my channel, so I'm super excited about it. So let's get into it. Why did you start this channel? So first of all, if anyone knows me, they know I love all things books. I've been reading like voraciously since I was a child, and this seemed like the perfect way to build a community and talk about something that I really love. Also, it was actually suggested by a mentor of mine after I was raving on and on and on about a book I read this year called An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. Basically, her response was, you should be a book critic, or you should review books, you should talk about them. Like, this is the kind of conversation that like lights you up, that's really good for you. And I was like, you know what, let me make a booktube channel. That's what I'm gonna do. What are some fun and unique things that you can bring to booktube? So I have so many ideas of the kind of videos and the kind of experiences that I want to bring to booktube. I'm gonna have special guests. I want to do thematic things. For example, reading different books about mental health, especially with people of color, bringing on therapists in that conversation, pairing books with albums, doing mood reviews, like the top 5 funniest books you should read, or books to bring to the beach, or books when you're going through a heartbreak. Kind of like a booktube soundtrack of sorts, or like a score to your literary experiences. I'm also going to be going to different adventurous, like bookish places, so vintage shops, bookstores of course, but just anywhere that you might find a sneak peek of literature and culture. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to bring to booktube, to make it more interactive, make it more fun. But of course you'll have your standards. There will be TBRs and all kind of things, but there will also be brunches and mukbangs and yeah, just like special guests and interviews and things like that. Spotlights, author spotlights. So I'm excited to bring, you know, some of my own, you know, whatever that is that I was trying to convey to the YouTube space, to the booktube community. What are you most excited about for this channel? I don't really know what I'm most excited about. I guess I would say I'm most excited about meeting and collaborating with other booktubers. I'm most excited about potential events and things that might happen in the community that I'm building here at the Lit Stoop. And yeah, I'm most excited to discover new things about myself and all of you. What book or series got you into reading? So this is a funny one. I have always been into reading, so to think about some of my favorite childhood books, because I've always loved books. My favorite childhood book is Harriet the Spy. I loved that book. I had it hardcover and I carried it with me everywhere, and it's one book I can remember I read over and over and over again, and I love the adventure of it. I wanted to be Harriet. I thought it was like a unique story for young people to read. The first real series that I ever got into was definitely The Babysitter's Club. Shout out to Anne and Martin. I was obsessed with The Babysitter's Club. I read the special edition books, watched the film, like whatever Babysitter's Club was coming out, that was like my first series. Like, I was like obsessed. It also made me feel very smart because the books would get thicker and bigger, and I was like, yo, I'm killing this. So Harriet the Spy and The Babysitter's Club, the series, definitely got me into kind of like reading more intently. What questions would you have for your favorite booktubers? So I have a bunch of favorite booktubers. My most favorite booktuber is A. Marie, also the singer. Girl, if you watching this by any chance, I love you, sis. Like, I couldn't even believe that one of my favorite singers and songwriters is also probably about to be one of my favorite authors and definitely one of my favorite booktubers. So one of the questions I would ask you is a book that everyone loves that you hate or dislike, that you're just really not into, but it's like a huge spectacle. Everybody loves it. New York Times bestseller, you know, all of that. Is there a book that you don't like that everybody loves? That's a good one. And then I think one more question for my favorite booktuber would be, I guess, what keeps you going? What makes you thrive in the booktube community? Like, why do you continue writing? Why do you continue reading as voraciously as you do? And there's a bunch of booktubers I feel that about. This Story Ain't Over, Left on Red, Rachel Ray, The Novel Lush, like all of y'all. So I'm gonna tag everybody, but those are my questions. Please help a sister out. What challenges about starting a booktube channel would be the hardest to overcome? So here's the thing, y'all. I felt like the challenges was starting. There were so many things. I have been thinking about this for months, and all you really have to do is turn on the camera and start, and it took forever for me to just do that. And I think moving forward, the hardest thing will be keeping the momentum up. So being really excited about something that just started is easy. It's the honeymoon phase, but how do I keep up the same energy? How do I give you consistent content? Those are the things I'm most nervous about, but also kind of excited about because it'll challenge me in the best ways. When did you start reading? Did I start reading? And when I learned to love reading is probably around the same time. I would say I started reading maybe when I was like 4. My godfather worked at Golden Books. I used to get books all the time. My grandmother was a teacher. We went to the library every weekend in Harlem. And so yeah, I've always loved books. I've always loved reading, so I would say 4. But then when I really got into, I guess, more complex reading, I was about 11. So that's when I started reading what people consider like college age books or different variety of books. So I would read everything from Parable of the Sower to Little Women, and all of those books I read when I was about 10 or 11, which seems very intense. I wasn't as intense of an 11-year-old as you might think, but I definitely was a reader. So yeah, pretty much my whole life, but from young at 4, and then at 11 it started getting real serious. I was looking up canons and different releases, and I was getting into it. So yeah. Where do you read? This is the key question. So I live in New York City. I live in Brooklyn. Shout out to Brooklyn. So shout out to Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn. I live in New York, which means if you're really trying to get anywhere, especially if you're working, you probably are taking the train. Public transportation is a thing here. We have a lot of cars, but I don't know who owns them. It's not the New Yorkers. So basically, I read a lot on commutes, to and from work, to and from appointments, on the way to hang out with friends. I'm pulling out a book. I'm listening to an audiobook. I carry books with me everywhere, so I read a lot in any kind of situational downtime. So if I'm waiting for a meeting that's starting late, then I'll pull out a book and read for 5 or 10 minutes. If I'm at my lunch break, then I'm reading. Yeah, I just kind of like fit it into the tight schedule to make reading happen all day long, or as often as I can. I definitely do not read really at home or before I go to sleep. I just feel like I'll miss something because reading can make me tired if I'm already super tired at home. So yeah, I do a lot of reading out in the world, at work, on the job, on the way to the job, hanging out with friends. I force my friends to go to bookstores with me, so that's how I fit in all of my reading time. Even in my relationships, past and the one I'm in now, we have like reading time together because I gotta fit it in. I have to finish this book. I need to know what happens to the character. Okay, so this is the last question in the Booktube Newbie tag, and it is, what kind of books do you read? So this is like the best, most important question. I read almost every genre, but my favorites are memoir. I love fiction. I love young adult. I love science fiction, some fantasy, and nonfiction. I'm a big fan of essays, some short stories, not too much historical fiction, but yeah, memoirs is definitely at the top. I love learning about who people are and how they became the people they are. And then following memoir is straight fiction. I love fiction. It's a great, not just like escapism, but like I get so wrapped up. There's so much world building in fiction in general. So I love me a good old novel. And then I definitely love nonfiction. So essays, I read lots of essays about music, about culture, about critique, about young people, about segregation, all kinds of things I read essays about, or I read nonfiction about. I'm just very curious about the world at large. So those are my favorites. And then science fiction would be the last like of my top 3 or 4 favorites. So science fiction, my 2 favorites, let's get it out the way now. If you have not, please pick up an Octavia E. Butler book, any of them. It don't even matter where you start. Fledgling, Parable of the Sower, Parable of the Talents, Kindred. It could be any of the series, it could be anything. Just pick up an Octavia E. Butler book. She definitely got me into reading science fiction. I was probably in the 9th grade, and I was like, wow, I've never seen myself reflected in stories in this way. She's a beautiful writer, and I didn't know science fiction or Afrofuturism was for me until I saw me. So shout out to Octavia Butler and just her work and her legacy. And then secondly, shout out to N.K. Jemisin. If you have not read an N.K. Jemisin book yet, you need to get on it, girl. She's the new hot thing, okay? That's the Broken Earth trilogy I would recommend, or anything like that. So yeah, that was my Booktube Newbie tag. I'll be back with more videos and more cool, fun, exciting adventures and bookish things. But until next time, I'll holla at y'all. Peace.